God, we ask your Spirit to be with us, to open up our hearts and minds so we can receive what you have to give to us today. Through these scriptures, songs we sing, words that are said, help us to know your need for who we are, your desire for who we can become. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. So how many of you traveled a pretty good distance to be here? Do we have some faraway people? If you had kids in the car, did you ever hear these words? Are we there yet? And what's the standard answer? No. I heard that from my kids thousands of times. Most of the time I would say almost, but not yet. I thought about those childhood car conversations as I remember asking the kids, like I have all through Advent, how many days until Christmas? One brother one time answered with the exact number of days. Last Sunday, or yesterday, we had to argue over whether it was 1.5 days or 1.75. The other brother sitting next to him just rolled his eyes and said, 1 trillion. I've forgotten how 2 weeks can seem like forever to a 4-year-old. Because our children have been waiting forever for Christmas to come, and now we're almost there. Our family has this running joke about time. In our cell phone age, there are those constant questions back and forth over the airways. Call you up, where are you? When will you be home? And that's when the Cargus code comes in. I think all families have this code. My children have determined that when mom and dad say, I'm just leaving, that means 30 minutes. If we say I'm on my way, that equals 20 minutes. If we say I'm just pulling in, that means 15. When we're all in the car and somebody has to go to the bathroom, when you say we're almost there, that can mean anywhere from 5 to 45 minutes. That's where we are today. We're almost there. Can you hold it? I got to thinking, we didn't tell people, Dave, where the bathrooms are either. There's one right over here, a couple over there. See, lots of families have gotten together almost 3 different weekends here to exchange gifts. For a lot of people, there's this rotation from one grandparent to another. Our publications coordinator, Allie, she just got married this fall, and she and her husband, I think we counted, have 5 places to go to in the next 2 days. Grandparents, great-grandparents. But still, there is anticipation, there is expectation, there is waiting. And then tomorrow, there will be that 2 to 20 minutes of unwrapping, and the Christmas moment will be over. My hope is that this annual exercise in expectation will once again strengthen our relationship with God, stretch our waiting muscles. When we do that, it reminds us how God works. God may not be on the same time schedule as us, but eventually God keeps God's promises. Today we remember that when we ask, God, where are you? Sometimes God says, I'm just pulling in. See, Jesus was born into dark times. The baby Jesus, the Christian church of Luke's gospel that we read this story was looking back over his life and death and resurrection and saw his birth as one bright spot in a dark and dreary time. Israel was conquered and occupied by a foreign country for decades. The people were oppressed. There was no hope to change that. And Jesus was born as a light into the darkness. Now, I don't know about you, but I have known darkness. I told a lot of people in the church my story how on May 11th of 2006, I woke up in a dark room, and I didn't know where I was. There was a light and an open door in a hallway. The TV was on. There was an IV in my arm and some kind of brace on my neck. I was groggy because of pain medication. And I've told the story before of how when I woke up in that ICU room, I wasn't sure if I was dead or alive. If I was dead, I had gone to hell because the TV was on and I had no remote control. Must have drove Cindy nuts, my wife, because my concussion at the scene of the accident, I had asked her, what happened? About 100 times. Over and over again. No matter what she told me, I just kept asking the same thing. But this time, I really meant it. And she told me we had been in an 8-car pileup on a bridge over the Pigeon River in the mountains of Tennessee, and the U-Haul truck I'd been driving was the 8th car. I'd skidded and plowed into a truck in front of me, and the pileup just skirted around Cindy in the van she was driving with her mother. And the airbags had saved my life, but it messed up my whole left side. My knee was dislocated. The ball of my left hip broke through the socket. They had to rebuild my pelvis and my left hip with 13 pins and plates. And I came this close to never walking again. This close to major brain damage. My kids debate that all the time. And then Cindy told me that our friend Ann and my brother Casey were on the way. They drove from Nebraska to Tennessee and stayed with Cindy for a week in the hospital. And I must have been gaining some clarity, because she tells me that when she told me that, I looked at her and asked if I was dying. In that darkness of my life, with a concussion in my drug-induced state, with 4 new titanium plates in my hip and 1 across my pelvis, there was this light of hope. People who loved me surrounded me and let me know they cared for me. My brother and Ann and Cindy also told me, when I'm on drugs, I swear a lot. And it was all about the remote control. They quoted me all the time. But God spoke to me, and I knew God through those people that were around me. And God spoke into my head and told me that the way to respond to this darkness was to be thankful. So I determined to say thanks for everything done to me. To all the nurses, the doctors, the physical therapists, every single time they poked me, stuck me, moved me around, the social workers, friends and family, colleagues, folks from the church and the community, I said thanks. And it was amazing what folks did. My staff parish relations committee chair in Beatrice at the time happened to work for Duncan Aviation, and he flew a plane from Lincoln to Knoxville, and they tucked me into the luggage compartment of that plane to fly me back to Beatrice. I told Brian Husa he was my hero, always will be, for flying me back there. Now, I knew God through all of those people. And I know that there are people out there tonight that also know darkness. And tonight I know that for some of you, that darkness is very close to swallowing you up. If you're in the dark right now with a marriage that has died a long time ago, but you're still in it, if you're in the dark with the loss of someone you loved, if you're in the dark tonight with bills that cannot be paid, if you're in the dark with a diagnosis of cancer or Alzheimer's or Parkinson's or arthritis or AIDS or West Nile, if the darkness of addiction has overtaken you or overtaken someone you love, tonight is the night that Christians all over the world remember and celebrate all those times when the light of God's love broke through the darkest dark and started to take it back. And God's people have left clues for us, words spoken across time, words spoken across the divide between heaven and earth, like, do not be afraid. I bring you good news, great news. When you thought you would never smile again, angels spoke to you in a dream and let you know you will know joy again. It will not be the same, but you will know joy, and it'll come in a way you never dreamed of, from where you least expect. But God's love will break through some way, somehow, and be a light amidst your darkness. And like that baby, the Christian church from the Gospel of Luke so long ago told us about, sometimes it's only when you look back that you recognize it, but then you'll see. And you'll be like me and you'll say, yep, there was no other way that could have happened. That was God, the one who brings light to the darkness in totally unexpected ways. Like a baby born in a barn to a people in a country occupied by a foreign force, to prove that power happens in the least expected way sometimes. There was not another way. That had to be God. And then God says to us, see, I did it again. Tonight, we'll lift up our lit candles and we'll sing Silent Night, and we'll remember that ours is a God that brings light into the darkness, and God does it in totally unexpected ways, so that we know there was no other way it could have happened. It had to be God. That's the way God works. Amen.